On this week's episode of the Heating Up Podcast, like Steve Harvey says, we got a good one for you today. We got a wonderful interview upcoming with Anand Nanduri from the NFL and actually from the he's a co-host of the Decision Point podcast. So stay tuned for that. But before we get into that, we're going to do the Premier League update, and we are going to go over all of the NBA playoff conference semifinals. So get ready, listen in, and here we go.
Hello, friends. I'm Jim Nance, and I'll welcome you to a tradition unlike any other.
He's heating up. How about this, Cowboys? Yeah! He's on fire. Cristiano Ronaldo. Sensational. Boom shakalaka. You believe in miracles? Yes.
There it goes. See ya.
He's heating up.
Trying to get open, fires away.
It's over. The Bulls win at the buzzer. Touchdown. Unbelievable.
Welcome to episode 52 of the Heating Up Podcast. Happy birthday, guys. Happy fucking birthday. We officially turned 1 year old. We made it.
Where's our photo shoot? We forgot to do the photo shoot.
I'm gonna eat some cake later.
I'll text the photographer while we're going.
Get her over here right now. But like I said, a little bit later today, listen in. We have a wonderful interview with Anand Nanduri of the Decision Point podcast. It was great. We break down the NFL draft, salary cap expert, a lot of good stuff coming up. But before we get into that, got to touch on the Premier League because the game that you guys were all waiting for, it officially happened today as the point we are listening to it. And it did all come down to it. Tottenham versus Man City. Tottenham had the chance where basically it was like a 2% chance. If they win the game, there's a chance they could make top four in the league and move on to Champions League. It was completely out of their hands. It still relies on next weekend. If we won this game today, that Aston Villa would have had to lose, which doesn't look like they were going to do. Or we could lose the game and ensure that Arsenal, our most bitter rival, had a worse chance of being able to win the league. And Tottenham came out, played a great game, and lost 2-0. So all is good in the world. And also, just to show you, I love there was all the videos going on. Arsenal found out what team hotel Man City was going to be staying at, and 2 a.m. lighting off crazy fireworks for like an hour in North London.
Love the dedication.
So they're all about it, but nonetheless, Man City could not be stopped because I think also they found out that was going to happen, so they changed their travel plans and didn't come in till the morning of. So basically, they just lit all those fireworks off and just ruined a bunch of
empty rooms.
Yeah, just ruined a bunch of a whole neighborhood's evening of sleep. But basically, Tottenham won against Burnley over the weekend and then came out. I thought we played pretty well. Just gave up one goal in open play that was just a really, really good play from De Bruyne and Haaland. And then we gave up a penalty kick kind of at the end to make it 2-0. But I thought we looked really good. We came out, we competed. We've been dealing with a lot of injuries, and really this game did nothing for us and could only hurt our most bitter rival. So fuck Arsenal. Let's go Tottenham. And we just need to come out and win next week against the worst team in the league that's already been decided that they're going to be relegated. So we go out, we win that. We make Europa League, finish 5th in the league, and we move on to next year. So Premier League, one more week you guys haven't heard about this.
I thought when you said the week that we were all waiting for, I thought it was that it was over.
No, sorry. Ouch. Next week.
I don't believe you. I don't believe that it's over after next week.
Yeah. Second that.
2 weeks from now,
never
it's going to be like, got to touch on Premier League. They played, wait a minute, I thought this was over.
It's a never-ending rotation. But we'll be off it soon. We'll be enjoying it. I like the way that we're at going into next year. I think that they're giving the keys of the kingdom to Ange, and he'll be able to spend a bunch of money. So it's relegation and just all these different these different options make all these games, even with shitty teams, super fun at the end of the year. So you got to like it. You got to love it. But conversation that we can all talk about a little bit more. NBA conference semifinals are heating up. All in the middle of the series. All the series, they're all tied 2-2 except for the Boston one. And I guess the biggest difference from last week is, as a Knicks fan, I'm just really fucking sad.
Yeah. I don't know.
Probably.
Many players. I feel like too numerous to count at this point in time. I was curious to see, I didn't want to bring it up to you, but I'm like, do do they win another one from here, or is it over?
Yeah, of course. I mean, right now, if you just saying that made me mad. I was thinking earlier today I'm going to come on here and just be a sad boy, just be mopey hours. But then you just said that, and I just got really defensive. It's like, yeah, we're still going to win the fucking series. What are you talking about? You can't talk about my Knicks like that. That was emotional.
They're minus 1.5.
That's
They're
already gone down.
Tonight.
They were minus 2.5 like 5 hours ago. So I think Vegas is catching up to that. I don't know. I don't feel good. I don't know if I feel better or worse about that blowout. Like realistically losing by 3 or losing by 30, it's still a loss. But the way that I'm spin zoning in my head is at least in this loss by 30, Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, our entire starting five didn't have to play an entire 12 to 15 minutes of that, of the end of that game. So that's my spin zone, is that they got a little bit of rest and they're not completely burnt out after another one of these like rock fight 48 minutes. Going to the Mecca is a big deal. I can't, they can't shoot that well again. The Pacers can't shoot that well again. The Knicks can't shoot that poorly again, but these injuries, it's catastrophic. You go down the list of Mitchell Robinson, of Julius Randle, which I'm still not sure if I'm in or out on him. But whatever, Bogdanovich, it's just every one of these possible role players to starters. It's just what's Thibodeau going to do? Thibodeau doesn't have another choice but to ride these guys. I mean, who knows if he'd be doing the same thing if all of these guys were available? Then it would be a little crazy. But right now, he doesn't have a choice. It's like we see what happens when Brunson sits down for an extended period of time. We see, like, Miles McBride can hit some big shots maybe, but he's not a guy that I'm willing to just be like he can take over the team. I think if
Alec
the Knicks
Burks
don't
put up points,
he looks great, but also, he got more minutes. It's like you got the ball in your hand a lot. You're gonna get some more shots. I think that they need to utilize him more for sure, because it's not sustainable to have Josh Hart playing 75 minutes a game. And a lot of it is going to how I feel is going to be determined by the first probably 10 minutes of this Knicks game, because I could just tell immediately in that last game, come out, Brunson puts up like 4 straight shots. Every one of them is short by the exact same amount. He's just not confident in that foot, ankle, whatever the problem is. You can just tell right away, because like they're so fast. And Mike said this as soon as we won the series and we figured out we were going to have to play Indiana. It's like, this is going to be a different series, and they are fast and young and long, and they're willing to play the same kind of game that we are. And I don't know who's better at it. They're willing to fight. They're willing to get those rebounds. They're really, they're willing to push the pace. And I hate TJ McConnell and his dumb face so much. And I want Jalen Brunson to drop 40 on him and have him just be red and sweaty and get benched.
I think there is something to be said about, I think you're better off after the blowout. Because if it, like you said, if this was a hard fought battle, the physical and mental, but mostly the physical for them at this point, I think that's harder for them to come back from, with just the number of minutes that these guys have been playing stacked up. And I feel like the fact that they got some rest, I feel like from a motivational standpoint, getting your ass kicked, I think motivates a team better, especially coming out at home. Like, they're not going to want to get embarrassed again. It's kind of exactly why I felt very confident in the Nuggets coming out and winning that game 3 of that series. Like, same kind of energy here. So I was just getting you riled up to start. I do think the Knicks are going to pull another one out. I still think they could win this series, but it's just, I think at this point, it's just fatigue levels are continuing to compound the further this goes on with, again, the injuries and the amount these guys have played. And I think that's unfortunately the biggest thing they're going to have to overcome if they're able to at all.
Okay. I want to bring back another segment. We got some positive feedback on from last week. Dumb guys ask a doctor questions. Can you work on the Knicks and can you get them healthy? Can you fix Jalen Brunson's foot or ankle and make him fine? What kind of shots is he getting to make his foot fine and then all of a sudden not be fine?
Would Liquid IV fix this?
No free ads.
No free ads.
No free ads. No powdered drinks are going to fix this one, unfortunately. Give me some other stuff, but not that. But no, I think at this point, that these things are hard. I would not want to be an NBA team doctor. Obviously, I hope the players are a lot more forthcoming with them. But when you're watching, I don't know about you guys, but I'm in health and I'm like, what happened to them on this play? They just collapse into a puddle on the ground. They're rolling over, grabbing their stomach, but then their knees curled up, and I'm like, what is injured? I don't even know how. it's hard to distinguish the way these guys collapse. Like Luka, king of this. I'll get going on him later because I'm on a major anti-Luka bender right now. So I'll save it. But yeah, I mean, that would be my biggest concern working with them. I think Brunson, I mean, at this point, he's going through no matter what, probably getting some Toradol injections. That would be what I think, but that only lasts so long, dosed every 4 to 6 hours, but it's peaking and then dropping. You can only give so much. You can't just keep giving this. His kidneys aren't going to work. There's side effect. And that's the problem, I think, with him. He's just only able to get enough for us how long these games go, and then pain control wears off at some point
do you think Thibodeau gives a shit about his liver?
Sasha, are you a match? Have you checked?
He was not at all. And Brunson probably doesn't, honestly. But obviously, I don't think the team doctors are about to get sued over it. But you know what I mean? I don't know. I think it's at this point, the foot, though, like, obviously that's hard because that's just going to compound as the game goes, right? The more he's putting on it, the more swollen it gets, the more painful it is, that sort of thing. It's not going to improve. It's not an injury that's going to improve as he loosens it up throughout the game.
It's just literally the, not another teen movie, Reggie Ray. Can he play? Coach, I'm not even sure he can breathe.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Sasha,
I
would you give a kidney? Would you give a kidney if just to win this series for Jalen Brunson? Not is that kidney?
I can live without a kidney, right? Or like I have another one, right?
You can live without one. You can live without. Well, I'm not a doctor. Hold on,
Sarah?
Kenny?
Yes, you can. It's quite. You're going to be kicking into your golf season here, though, with your recovery. You're going to miss a good amount of summer golf, and I wouldn't be going for it for the semi-conference finals, just recovery-wise. But you can confirm live without a kidney.
Can I post about it every?
90s.
Can I post about it every day on Facebook about the good deed I did?
You definitely could.
As long as your wife allows.
All right, yeah. As long as I can get some clout online for it, I guess.
You might get to meet Jalen Brunson probably.
You probably would.
He still won't even be in the same room with me. He's like that.
No.
I think if it could guarantee going to a Game 7 in the conference final, like if we could get through this, win the next 2, 4-2, and then if you guarantee that they would be able to go to a Game 7 against the most likely Celtics, I'd think about it.
Nice. That's what I want to hear out of you.
Yeah, I need something. I'm not just going to give it for him to them to go shit down their leg and lose this series. I'm going to need some guarantees.
All right, Sarah, what would you give a kidney to Dak Prescott? What level of football? I don't know. We're going off the rails here. What would be a kidney for you?
At this point, after last year, I have to say Super Bowl or bust. I mean, I have to go with that as a Cowboys fan. We need this. I can't be settling. Nothing, not even I don't even think making it to the NFC Championship game cuts it here. But if you asked me last game, I might have backed it down to NFC Championship. But this year, I'd have to say Super Bowl.
Okay.
That's fair. It is a normal.
So I'm keeping my kidneys. So that's the moral here.
If James Dolan hears this, I'm just going to wake up tomorrow in my bathtub full of ice.
It's just a letter that says just in case.
Yeah. They don't even use it. They just keep it on ice in case they need it some other time. Before I give away any other organs, Timberwolves Nuggets, Mike, I got to say it. Is you gambling the kiss of death for any team?
I was wrong. I made a big mistake.
Just so the people will fill people in. Mike, as he said, he mentioned when they were plus 1,100, he gave me a call and convinced me to put a bet on the Timberwolves, and they immediately went up 2-0 in the series against the Nuggets. I was living large. I thought it was wonderful. I thought it was great. I went to go get a haircut. I was off my phone for 20 minutes, and I got 3 text messages from Mike saying, what if I bet the Timberwolves versus the Cavaliers in the finals? It was plus 3,100. Actually,
5,100.
Plus 5,800. Plus 5,100. And then 3 minutes later, it said, I bet it. And I got back to my phone after my haircut. I said, Mike, what have you done? And he said, this is going to happen. So, Mike, you want to take it from there? What's happened since then?
Well, I haven't picked up a game in either series since that bet, which is unfortunate. We were close last night, and I missed the beginning of the game, and the first thing I heard the announcer said was, the Cavaliers are putting up a great fight without Donovan Mitchell, so I don't even know what happened to Donovan Mitchell.
Ruled out before the game started.
With what? I didn't know he was hurt.
Another kidney issue, I think.
Oh my God!
No.
Well, I would give if that bet hits Donovan. I'd give Donovan Mitchell a kidney. Yeah, it's been. Don't give up on the Timberwolves, everybody. Relax. Nobody's won a home game yet.
It's crazy.
This is a weird series, although it was very scary. But like we all have recency bias. Forget the Cavs. That was stupid. I was trying to chase odds. Big mistake. Although they're still not out of it. The Timberwolves, they made Denver look just as bad as Denver's making Minnesota look right now.
Yeah.
So it's going 7.
I want it to go 7. I want more of these games. You're so right.
Yeah, I think Minnesota. I think Minnesota's going to win in Denver. I think this is going to be some sort of a weird, the only series ever where no home team won a game. Something crazy like that. Anthony Edwards still. I stand my ground on that. Best player in the league. He's incredible. It's just everybody else on. What was the? I don't know. Could we say we could bleep it out if Sasha's not comfortable? What was the great nickname? So I said. Karl Anthony Towns is being stupid again. Special Olympics, Sasha said.
So I just said Karl Anthony Downs. Slam dunk. Mikey, we got to get it. We got to get a rim shot for every time I make one of those.
I will. I think hold on. Ready, everybody?
Oh, bang! All right, we'll be ready on that one next time. But yeah, that one, that one was a layup. I just I get so frustrated watching him play sometimes. And Gobert, too. It's just like, maybe does Gobert need to go have another kid? They looked great when he was out.
Mm-hmm.
I think the kid threw it off.
Oh, maybe not sleeping so much? What's going on?
I don't know. I feel like he could afford help to help him out with that.
Yeah, I would assume so. He's French. He probably hasn't even seen that kid yet.
Maybe after all the COVID stuff, no au pair wants to come stay at that house.
Touching microphones.
Yeah.
But yeah,
that's a big issue. It's a big issue. I'm very concerned. Honestly, this isn't my strong season. I'm a football bettor, guys. Look at my stats. I was 30 and 45 in football. That's where I succeed.
That's where I win.
Take all this shit with a grain of salt. That's where I win 30 out of 75 bets.
No, but I like it. It is just so betting against Jokic is just so tough because when he starts to cook and when he starts to look good, you're just so silly. And I did see this very funny thing online that I've been thinking about ever since. It's just like Jokic just plays. He looks like he's just being controlled by like a Ratatouille mouse. He looks just like two kids in a trench coat. Like, he just runs so goofy. It just looks like a video game out there. But
same thing. Scratches on his arms.
Yeah, there's just a rat up there. But yeah, I want more of these games. They're so good. They're both such good teams. They're so fun to watch. And honestly, it's like watching the Knicks lose by 30 really killed me. But it also, like, watching those two teams play each other, I'm just like, oh man, the Knicks aren't on that level. Like, I'm watching both of them. I'm like, oh, that is like how coaching is done and how these how these players, their time management, and how just these plays are laid out. So many different guys contributing. And it's just like, oh, it's just watching the Timberwolves Nuggets series has made it just very, very clear that they're both on a different level.
Yeah, 100%.
I don't think Boston's winning the title.
Yeah, they're not winning. I mean, obviously, after that game they got blown out. And I know that some of the scores have been decent spreads, but they're not blowing the Cavs out by any means, and they're not looking great. I mean, they are up 3-1. It seems silly to say that, in the only series that's not tied right now, that the Celtics, aren't looking that great. But I think I know where you're going with that, Mike.
I just don't think. I think when they come and they're facing like one of these top teams out of the West.
Yeah.
The that game for the Celtics was the only game so far for them that was decided by less than 10 points.
That's crazy.
Either way.
Yeah. Okay.
They're such a weird team.
So weird.
I hate them.
Yeah. They're not ready for the West. I feel like whoever comes out of the West, watching OKC and the Mavs play, I think that the Celtics would struggle against either of those teams if it somehow even came to that, which that's even discounting, obviously, the Nuggets and Timberwolves, who are incredible as well.
No, I completely agree. So it's like the Cavs actually look. I like Mobley a lot. He's fun to watch. He's good.
Mm-hmm.
Darius Garland's a good player too. Like they're not a bad team.
Thank you. That's why I paid the bet.
I just think, I think injury is tough. I did look at it. It was a calf injury, by the way, on the calves. It was an issue with his calf. And is Jared Allen? They keep showing him. He gets like probably the most screen time during every one of those games. It's just constantly on Jared Allen and his effort. Like, is he coming back? I haven't heard anything that's like he's definitely going to be back in this series.
It's been game time decision every game, so I hope so.
Yeah,
I don't know if it matters. I think they're done.
Yeah,
Donovan Mitchell's trying on his Knicks jersey.
There we go.
Try to reverse jinx this. Maybe I should just bet on Boston.
There you go. And then Mavs Thunder has also been just a rock fight of a series. Young gun team of the Thunder. How's Chad doing, by the way? Is he holding up for these games? I mean, this has been
unwell. He was not. We went over there Saturday. I mean, as you know, this OKC's been playing well past my bedtime, but I did stay up last night. Was able to watch them Saturday because they had the 3:30 slot finally. And I mean, okay, first of all, I think I ditched the Heat. I'm an OKC fan. Like, this team has me all in. I was having like secondhand anxiety watching it last night. And I hate Luka, but I'll get to that. OKC, Chet, like, it's something about him bothers me. Yeah. I like he seems like a likable guy, but like, I'm sorry, how does he have, he's tall, but like his vertical is like 1.5 inches. Yeah, no more.
It's his face. Not get it's his face.
That too. He kind of like slinks up and down the court too, like, which is like, kind of sleuthy. I don't know, but he's just like he's uncoordinated. I feel like when you need him most, I worry about him because like he can't bring the rebounds down. He's getting bullied around in the paint, and like, I don't know. He makes some great moves. He can shoot well, so he helps him out. But I just feel like when they need it most, like against the Nuggets, like how is he going to fare against Jokic? Like Jokic just has to give like a slight chest bump, and then Chet is going to be on the ground like immediately. So I don't know. That worries me. But Shea, I mean, he has the ability to take over games. We saw it last night. OKC looked terrible, in the first quarter last night. And it was like, this is over. They looked young. They looked nervous. They were turning the ball over. Nothing was falling for them. Everything was falling for the Mavs. And it honestly looked like it was over. And I'm very impressed they were able to come back and win that game on the road. But it was all thanks to Shea. I mean, he's just taking the team over. And I've been so impressed watching him. I feel like that's like stereotypical. Everyone's saying that, where he was this MVP potential candidate that we just didn't see much because they don't get much national airtime. But he really is like so underrated, even though he was meant as an MVP candidate. So I'm very excited about them. It's going to be a tough series. I think this goes 7-2. I feel like we're in for a lot of good games, in the next couple of weeks, and I'm interested to see how it fares out. But they're heading home for the next 2, so that should be good.
Yeah, I think they need that.
If only you don't think the NBA wants these games to go 7, do you?
Now, the NBA doesn't care about anything but trying to meddle in Mike Blazel's bets. They just want to figure out what you're doing and stop that from happening.
You got to watch the refs. Scott Foster, the equalizer, coming in to make sure these games go late.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got lots of good stuff coming down the pipeline. So hopefully the Knicks could at least make my mood more positive for the next round. Listen, we make it to the conference finals. I'm a happy boy.
And
what?
You'll be keeping your kidney. You wouldn't even have to
actually, even more importantly, that's going to be a tough. The more I'm thinking about that's going to be a tough sell to Andrea. I don't know if she's going to be thrilled about that. Like, listen,
I was not on it because of that. I had to be neutral party here.
I'm going to be
ending contract.
I'm going to be out of commission for the next 6 to 8 weeks. You're fine with that, right? She's like, oh no, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, this is for the Knicks. She'll get it. But now, before we kick into the interview, we got to try to make the listeners some money. We want to run it back with the Heat check. Rough week last week for the fellas.
Yeah, the fellas.
I thought you did all right? Yeah, Nuggets plus 4.5.
Yes, I'm carrying us.
Yeah, at least. So we for us guys here, we did not do so well. But you know what? Set up for a great comeback. That's a setback. Just set up for a great comeback. So listen, Sarah, you're the hot hand. Why don't you lead us off?
So I'm going a little off-label here, not sticking with a money line or game line. I'm going with Lou Dort over 1.5 threes. I've been riding it the whole playoffs. It's been hitting for me. It's probably not going to hit now that I'm telling you guys this, so maybe fade me. I don't know, but they haven't changed the line yet. He's been consistently hitting around three three-pointers per game. So I was thinking it would go up to 2.5 after, just because it's been so easy to hit, but As of now, as it stands when we're recording this, still they are 1.5. So that's what I'm taking this week.
Love that. They're coming home too. Those guys always tend to step up and maybe feel a little more confident taking those shots at home too. So I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Mike, turn it all around for us. Win some money.
I'm gonna keep it simple. You want to take Cleveland Cavaliers? No, I'm just kidding. I'm gonna take the Thunder -4 home against Dallas on Wednesday.
I don't like this. I don't like you to stay away from them. That's my team. I'm just kidding. It's fine.
I am now an Oklahoma City Thunder fan, and I'm betting on them to win the finals. No, I think my PJ Washington is playing like Kevin Garnett right now, or he's playing out of his mind. He's playing at a level that we've never seen him. I actually liked him as a player coming out of college, and then he got sent to the Hornets, which is like where any talented player goes to die. But he's resurrecting his career. But he has been the leading scorer for Dallas in the last 2 games. I think it's the first time in the Kyrie Luka in any game that they've played together that they weren't one of the leading scorers in a game. First time
sense.
ever. And I think where he's shooting out of his mind, he's carrying this team. He's the third member of the big 3. And I don't think that's going to continue just based off of his history. It's only a 4-point spread. Oklahoma City, going back to the Westbrook, KD, Harden days, is one of the most wild, loud arenas that I've ever watched on TV, up there with like what NYC is doing right now. It's the way back in the day, Utah used to be like that, where they'd have the decibel. That's the first time I remember ever seeing the decibel meter. Great home crowd. Kyrie, I mean, just, I don't know. Kyrie, things go south. It's Kyrie checking out. There's a lot of good things going. Luka's that leg's not been feeling great. So give me Thunder -4. That's easy. And, as a big Oklahoma City Thunder fan, I know what I'm talking about.
She's like, don't do this to me. You taking 4? I'm seeing 4.5. Well, you want the extra point or half a point?
Give me 4.5. Give me 4.5. I'm not afraid.
Yeah, I'm going to take that right now. All right, I'm going to throw you guys a little, something we haven't done before, but I've started to get into it like I alluded to last week. Surprise, hockey bet. Rangers money line on Thursday, +140. I thought they looked good until the third quarter or the third period yesterday, and then ended up getting blown out. They had a chance to just end the series at home. They were up 3-1 going home, and then just completely shit down their leg and let up, was it 3 or 4 goals in the third period last week. But I think that they are going to come out hot. The Carolina they are favored right now. I think the line is like +1.5 right now. So if you're not trusting me too much, I think you can at least take that +1.5. But the money line +140. I think the Rangers end it on Thursday and move on to the Eastern Conference Finals. So love that. We got Lou Dort over 1.5 threes. The Thunder -4.5, and we got hockey bet Rangers money line on Thursday +140. So we're turning it around. Sarah's not going to be the only one that comes in next week staying hot. So we're going to win you all some money. So now, as promised, we want to kick it to a wonderful, wonderful interview that you cannot miss with Anand Nanduri, again, the co-host of the Decision Point podcast, NFL analyst, former salary cap expert for the NFL, and now he is an advanced stats and metrics for fantasy football players. Wonderful interview, super smart guy. Tune in, let us know what you think. And as always, we love you, and we will talk to you next week. And welcome to the very, very exciting first interview. As promised, we are bringing on the co-host of the Decision Point podcast, currently employed by the Player Profile, and former NFL, I guess, and current NFL analyst. We'd like to welcome on Anand Nanduri. Welcome to as your first time on the Heating Up podcast. So we're very happy to have you here, man. How you doing today?
Good, man. Sasha, Mike, Sarah, it's great to see you guys. Big fan of what you guys actually put out there. Sarah sent me a couple of things back in the day, but man, excited to get into it. There's all kinds of stuff talking about, and they've got a schedule release on our hands for some reason.
It doesn't matter. We got NHL, we got NFL or NBA playoffs, but that NFL bug, it always just stays in the back of your head. It's hard to take our attention away from that.
They work hard. I mean, it's the 24/7, 365 hype machine, man. They've got this down to a science.
Yeah, it's literally game 5 of the NBA playoffs and series that are tied 2-2. And the most exciting thing that came across my phone today was schedule releases and them dropping the first and second games of the NFL season. So it's like, yeah, I can pretend I really care about the NBA, but it's just not the same.
Of course not, man. You know who the king in town is, and they keep us strapped in 365 days a year, man.
Absolutely. So 100%. So before
Christmas.
It's like the Grinch, but positive, right?
Yeah, in a good way. Yeah.
I didn't know we'd have to bring up me being Jewish so soon, but here we are.
Get it out of the way.
So, Anand, we want to dive right into it. We want to let the people know. So, you've obviously had some roles relating to NFL analytics. You've been involved in the, as a salary cap expert. Now you've done a lot with the draft and scheduling. You've had a whole lot of roles. You're an expert in a whole lot of it. So, just let the people know, wanting to know a little bit on our end as well. Give us a little bit how you got started and kind of an overview of, how your career path has gone and where you are now.
Yeah. So I got started, I went to Miami of Ohio studying econ, not at all the traditional sports marketing, sports media, any of that landscape. I thought I was going to go into finance, did that for a little while. And then immediately after that, I kind of decided that wasn't for me. And so I was sitting at my desk and decided to apply to every sports job imaginable. And really, I thought it was going to be more NBA than it was NFL. College football is really my passion, even more so than the NFL is.
You got hooked by the Maction up in Miami of Ohio.
There you go. You love a good battle of the bricks day when it's Miami against Ohio U. It was something. There was something special to me about the camaraderie that happens with a college football, and obviously when translated to the NFL, you kind of realize that there are some brands that exist larger than others. Whether you talk Cowboys, Bills, Ravens, Bengals, Steelers. Obviously, I grew up in the Midwest, so there are a lot of brand cachet there. But I took a job in league finance office for a while, and had a lot of fun doing that. Learned a lot. It is much more complicated than, dudes hitting each other for 60 minutes on Sundays. There's a whole enterprise product behind that. There are a lot of people behind the scenes that do all kinds of things. There are people within the people that are, scheduling people to do things. It's really crazy. And the behind the scenes there is really interesting. But after that opportunity in June of 2021, I moved to Chicago to take a job with MGM, the casino. So kind of got involved in the sports betting side of things. And, learned about what we do on the odds making sides, how we handle problematic customers. We got to go to a lot of suites and do a lot of fun things. And so been bouncing around the gambling and DFS space since then. But man, it's a great time to apply knowledge that you've learned. I don't know that financial structures of salaries help there, but we had fun here. Yeah.
I might need to talk with you offline about some of what you've learned.
I was just going to say, you're going to have to delete Mike. Mike, you're going to have to change your email address after this because I could see Mike's brain going.
Open your DMs. Open your DMs right now. Open your DMs.
Have you guys seen that thing online where people will do it around their kids or their dog, where they'll pretend to be on the phone and say all their favorite words to get them attention? Be like, oh, you want to go? Just pretend to be on the phone and start talking about a walk or food for their dog and start you just said Bills, gambling, MGM, all in one sentence. Mike is ready to go.
Yep.
I was like, odds
stuff,
maker. Okay, hang on.
Good stuff, Mike. We'll talk offline, man.
Yeah, deal.
That's really awesome. So obviously you have a ton of experience in all these things, and that's obviously very, very interesting to us. So I did have one question here. Just based on your experience, is the salary cap real? And can you explain it to me like I'm an idiot? Or, can you explain it to me like a way that a player might understand it?
Yeah. I mean, it's not what people make it out to be. It's not this end all be all hard ceiling in the manner that it's discussed. What it really is an accounting tool. And what it accounts for functionally is how much money of the available money that you have out there are you actually paying to your players? Now, there are ways to manipulate it. You've heard about void years. The Saints are very, above and beyond in terms of void years, in terms of how they manipulate the cap with that. But functionally, when you use a void year, the thought process behind using it is not, hey, we're creating material money out of thin air. It's this year's salary cap is $200 million, as an example. It's not actually, but let's say next year's or 3 years from now, we expect it to be $300 million. A dollar today on a $200 million cap is worth a lot more than a dollar 3 years from now on a $300 million cap. And when teams use void years and do things that kind of manipulate the salary cap, what they're really trying to figure out and what their angle there is, at some point we have quote unquote infinite money until you run into a year like 2020 where suddenly revenue drops and players get a different portion of their share, the same portion of their share, but the number looks radically different than what you thought it would look like. And all of the structuring that you put in place for years and years and years looks very different than it does now. And you're scrambling, trying to figure out how do we get out of this, because we're anticipating a jump next year and then the year after and the year after that. And obviously as these TV deals come in and new revenue streams form for the league, I think the Amazon deal is a big deal. I think the fact that they're putting a game on Peacock this year is a big deal. They're trying to bring in revenue streams to the point where obviously it's a more profitable product, as insane as that is to say, because it's already, as profitable
like
as
the most profitable product.
Yeah. They're still working, and the salary cap is just the players' revenue share and the accounting tool for the players' revenue share of the money that's allocated throughout the league.
Okay.
So it's like, and they have the Christmas games are going to be on Netflix, which is like the beginning of something.
They're spending a lot of money. They're giving out rights to people that I just did not think that they would ever give out media rights to. Netflix being one of them. I really didn't think that they would let NBC push them into Peacock. Amazon was a natural one only because streaming world, Amazon is Amazon. You kind of need the brand equity there, but it was a really interesting call for them to actually allow Netflix to do something. So I'm really interested to see how that works out.
Yeah, and Amazon, I think the biggest thing about what they provide is all of those while you're watching and you're seeing the analytics, you could have that separate stream. I think that's with like AWS or whatever, where they're showing like real time, like how fast they're running, the ball flight, all that stuff. I think that's really changed like the viewing of the game.
Yeah, that's Sam Schwartzstein, who used to do that for the XFL. Great dude. He was Andrew Luxo lineman at Stanford. He's done a fantastic job with everything that they do over there. And I think personally, that's the broadcast, even more than Red Zone, that I look most forward to every week.
Yeah, me too.
100%.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have to take over here while we're on the salary cap and ask specifically about the Cowboys. I'm sure they'll get their questions in about their respective teams, but I'm interested to know, with looming cap issues, lack of offseason moves, draft went okay. Where do you think the Cowboys sit this year and kind of going forward? Like, what do you think is in their best interest? Are they all in? Are they all out? I'm curious to hear from your unbiased opinion where they're at.
Sarah, how can you be all in without your quarterback for 3 or 4 or 5 years? That's a really tough premise to hit me with, right? It is, and I know that there are pieces around him that matter, and I know that we're looking at kind of reshuffling an offensive line. They brought Zeke Elliott back. There's a lot of excitement in Cowboy land because the Eagles looked vulnerable in a way that no one thought at the end of 2022 that they would look as vulnerable as they did last year. Losing both coordinators, and Jalen, I wouldn't say necessarily took a step back as much as wasn't buoyed by everything around him quite as much last year. And you look at where Dallas sits, and the NFC is there for the taking. Mm-hmm. I mean, the Niners are begging anybody to step up to the throne and really challenge them over that period of time. And it was the Rams for a little bit. Now you think the Lions are going to be involved there. You assume the Cowboys are going to be involved there. The Eagles, obviously, and you've got Green Bay looming back there as well. Jordan Love's second half of the year is, outside of Cowboy Twitter, not a lot of people are talking about it, but Jordan Love's second half of the year was pretty special. They found something, and as young as Green Bay is, that team's on the up and up. But as far as Dallas goes, the question that I have, if you're going to use the phrase "we're all in," is how are you going to be all in when Dak Prescott is going to come to your desk if you're Jerry Jones and say, "Hey, it's $60 million a year or nothing," because there is no succession plan.
Yeah,
but they got Zeke back.
That's my guy. I'm a Buckeye. Can he throw?
And he's
bringing out the Tebow jump pass again.
And he's got that Mississippi State education. I'm not totally positive he'll know how to even find Jerry Jones's office.
Can you believe they paid Jared Goff before Dak Prescott got a contract?
Oh, I think that was really smart. Brad Holmes, the Lions GM, is one of my favorite executives in the league. He came from the Rams. And I think the way that he's gone about doing this, Penei Sewell, again, right before a bunch of guards and tackles get paid. Amon-Ra St. Brown, right before Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson get paid. Jared Goff, right before Dak Prescott gets paid. Paying early is the easiest way to make sure you're not the market maker. You're making a market in the moment right now. But the market, as you see it, as it goes forward, a year or two, eventually, if you pay early, you're getting a value. I mean, everybody remembers where they were when Pat Mahomes' deal was announced. Like, $500 million. This is crazy. Who would ever do that? And now you're looking at it at an annual value basis. And Pat Mahomes is like the 9th or 10th most expensive quarterback in the league before they restructured him. And you're looking at the way that Brett Veach and that Kansas City front office went about doing that. And you're looking at what the player is. Nobody's Mahomes. So I would kind of discard him and put him in his own pile because nobody's that. But when you look at kind of how you're trying to build a roster out, I think that's so fascinating that Jerry is willing to sit there and wait for Dak to make him the most expensive NFL player ever on an annual value basis. I just don't get it.
And you think that's what he's looking for?
Oh, I think that's
Dak?
If I'm his agent, I'm absolutely asking for that.
Yeah.
It's so crazy.
I mean, it's the next one up gets paid the big money. That's how it's always been. And that's, I think it will continue to trend that way until there's a second tier of quarterbacks. We kind of started to see this a little bit with Daniel Jones, Geno Smith, those kind of guys getting in at like 30, 35, 40 million. But for the most part, if you're in that top tier, if somebody views you as a franchise quarterback, we love to use that term. I don't know why. Every quarterback is a franchise quarterback when you need him, man. Tommy DeVito was out there slinging it last year.
Yeah.
It's just, call it what it is. But anytime you have somebody that's giving you legitimate results, that payday is coming, and it's costly every time.
Yeah. So I guess I just need a quick number. How many decades would it take for Daniel Jones' contract to not be too much?
At least one.
Okay. All right. That's fine. That's a good. I see.
At least one.
I qualified it by decades, so one sounds like a small number.
Inflation's crazy right now.
So you kind of alluded to it with the Cowboys and then obviously the Lions, but just in your salary cap opinion, is there one team that seems to always have like a creative approach to managing their salary cap? And then is on the inverse, is there a team that always seems to just be like constantly stepping on the rake?
I think that the team that back in the day used to historically have issues with Cincinnati. And it's not a salary cap issue. It was literally cash flow. Anything that you put guaranteed in a contract has to, by the following year, I think it's January 31st and then March 31st. There's a check on January 31st where they check how much guaranteed money you've issued, fully guaranteed money in a contract in the last year. And then by March 31st, that has to be put in escrow. And so the Bengals, being not the cash richest team, had issues with that, and the way that they went around that was they fully guaranteed year one of contracts, and then 2 and 3 were kind of totally unguaranteed to the player. And obviously player agents didn't like that because that's not how everybody else does business. Right. But when you were in Cincinnati, that's how they had to do business at the time until Joe came to town and revenue increased and they got to spend a lot more money. But I don't think there are teams that are really quote unquote poor at managing their salary cap. Again, it's just a tool. One of the teams that I think is the most creative is definitely New Orleans. Mickey Loomis loves the void years, and he loves, structuring things out until 2035 with all of the weird bells and whistles that go along with that. But it's not necessarily that anybody's good or bad at it. It gets overblown every year, like, oh, we're in salary cap hell. Not really. I mean, you can always restructure somebody. You can always trade somebody. It's more of a, what did you do last year and the year before that got you to this spot than it is, what are we doing going forward? That's
so interesting. I'm going to sound so smart at the office when everybody's like, oh, the Saints are in cap hell. I'm like, well, actually, you're dumb. They're not. And I'm not smart enough to be able to argue that, but I'll at least say that and walk away.
One of my favorite Bill's Twitter sayings is "There's always money in the banana stand."
It is true. It does always seem like that.
Yeah.
It's like no team is ever not fielding a 53-man roster.
Yeah. It's not like you get to the gun and people are like, oh shit, are they going to be a competent roster this year? It's really just, the cap is real in you have to make prudent decisions as they come available to you. Mike, Stephon Diggs is a perfect example. At some point you're going to have to cut bait, and you'd rather cut bait much like a Bill Belichick a year early than a year late. And so it kind of forces your hand on some other things that you would otherwise not do, but it's not really a constraint on a roster as much as it's made out to be.
Well, that was the whole talk about Diggs getting traded was like, oh my God, they get no cap relief. They have to pay him this whole year. And then like one or two restructures and, a couple more cuts. And we ended up having like plenty of money. And I'm going to have questions for you about some more money that's coming in June for later. But yeah, it seems like no matter what, it's like it's a good talking head piece of like, oh, this team is ruined by this. And then at the end of the day, there's so many levers you can pull if need be to really mortgage the future in a sense, right? To get what you need today.
And I mean, the thing that's not talked about is trading draft capital is mortgaging your future. Assigning future salary cap value to guys that aren't going to be there is not really mortgaging your future unless you're looking at like a Russell Wilson. That's a very extreme, very different example.
And even he got traded.
Yeah, that's not
cut. Sorry,
that's not normal. $86 million is not normal. But other than that, outside of that, most of it is absorbable. And you're watching teams kind of do that. Jared Goff was one of them. Matthew Stafford was one of them. You're kind of watching teams more willing to bite the bullet early, just with the understanding that the cap will go up and you will get some of those assets back over time.
Fair.
Yeah. What do you think about the NFL draft? Now, we obviously, what everybody talks about, but what would you say are surprising winners or losers from the draft?
Yeah,
besides the Bills winning.
Last year, on Decision Point, Matt and I talked about how we didn't love Detroit's process in round 1 and round 2. Last year they took, the running back Jahmyr Gibbs out of Bama, really good player, but 12 overall was high for us. And then they took Jack Campbell, the linebacker out of Iowa. And then they followed that up in the second round by taking Brian Branch, the safety out of Bama, and then Sam Laporta, who everyone loves. Hard not to love him, the tight end out of Iowa. And our reasoning was this draft is okay because if you just basically swap the first round and the second round in terms of value of player you're getting, this is totally all right. But you don't want to draft a running back and a middle linebacker in the top 18 to 20 of a draft just because it's bad value. And then you get to this year and Detroit is drafting Terry and Arnold, whom many people had the best DB on the board, period, at 24, 25 in the first round. And you say, okay, finally they get it. So I think Detroit was a big winner. It's hard not to see the Bears as big winners. You get Caleb and you get Roma Dunze. I know that it's not the biggest draft class in the world, but it is a really good one. The Steelers, O-line, wide receiver, linebacker, guard, D-tackle, safety. Loved every pick that they made. Obviously, we did our draft stream and kind of broke all of that down. But those are 3 of my favorite drafts. And then the one that you've just got it, the one team that you've sat there and watched, like, God, please give the fans of this team some kind of hope. And they finally did. Adam Peters, the GM of the Washington Commanders, is an adult. There's an adult in the building, guys. In Arizona and Monty Ossenfort and in Washington, there are adults in the building now. We have people that understand what draft capital means, and I loved Washington and Arizona's drafts as well. Those are, some of my favorites. As for the teams that I didn't love, it's easy to pile on to Atlanta, but the Michael Penix pick is not the pick that I hated. It's Rukaroro in the second round when Johnny Newton was there. You traded up to go get him. Not a big fan of that. Denver, what are we doing? What are we doing?
Yeah.
What are we doing?
What are they doing?
They're on a cycle to being exactly the opposite of what a team aims to be. They're going to be remarkably average for a long time. And you don't want to be average. You either want to be really good and competing for titles, or you want to be bad. You do not want to be average for a long period of time. And that's right where Denver's headed right now. And it's ugly.
Well, the Atlanta to give some defense to Atlanta, they were used to, the GM was used to, thought it was fantasy and it was a 2-quarterback league.
Oh, we're playing Superflex now?
Yeah, that's what. So they were like, what after the pick? They're like, you can't play them both. So that's a real bummer.
The Steelers are apparently trying Justin Fields out on kickoff returns now. Yeah. We got all kinds of crazy stuff happening, man.
I just feel like they have such they've built enough cachet as like making smart decisions within that organization, the Steelers, where it's like you hear that, and if the Falcons were doing it, you'd be like, they're crazy. But you hear the Steelers are doing it, you're like, maybe there's something there. I don't know if I believe it, but maybe.
It's the old New England adage, right? Where Belichick must be some mad genius. There has to be method to the madness of drafting a punter in the 5th round. You know, something's got to give. He's got to know something we don't know.
Right, just drafting a lacrosse team.
Sometimes these guys just miss, man. and it is what it is.
No, 100%. So, and I guess kind of going on that, what is it, do you think that, so obviously you see all this talk moving on to the, still kind of in the draft. What makes some teams so good at drafting certain positions? Like, the Steelers and the wide receivers, the quarterbacks, and the Packers, it always seems like they're drafting kind of the right guy. And there's just some things where it's like, oh, this team got that position. They see something we don't. Is it as simple as having one guy in the room that just knows that position so much better? Or is it like, can a team, like, can the Steelers just keep drafting these receivers that turn out to be like pretty good and then they leave and they're terrible?
Yeah, I think it goes back to something that I've discussed a couple of times on what we talk about, which is we talk about failed head coaches that are really good coordinators all the time. What we don't talk about is failed coordinators that are really good position coaches. And when you get to failed coordinators that are really good position coaches, especially if they were head coaches before, you look at a guy like a Bill Callahan. Bill Callahan's going to make your offensive line better than it is. Mm-hmm. And I think that a lot of the way that we look at these teams that draft these guys historically well, especially over stretches of runs like Pittsburgh did, or like New England with offensive linemen when Dante Scarnecchia was their O-line coach. So much of it is continuity and understanding this is what we're looking for. This is our archetype. We understand how to manipulate and use guys like this better than other teams do. We see value in them where other teams don't, because one of the things that doesn't get talked about often enough, I think personally, is especially when it comes to the draft, anytime you hit the draft button, you are betting that you are more right than 31 other teams. That's what you're doing. Every single time you hit draft player, if you haven't sent out the offer to every other team to find out where they value said player, and you're betting that your evaluation on this player is right and that you are higher correctly on this player than 31 other teams are. I think it's super interesting to go at Pittsburgh wide receivers, especially, is a great one. Green Bay at quarterback, I think at some point you just got to accept that it is what it is, and they're a product of the team around them. Ownership's great. We know that their coaching staff is very solid there. You look at how that operation is built. You notice the teams that are never terrible. Pittsburgh's never terrible. Baltimore's never terrible. Green Bay's never terrible. It all starts with ownership, because there's a shared understanding of, hey, this is what we're trying to do here. And they do a really great job of executing that with everybody that they have. It's not just the quarterback. It's the 3 receivers that they drafted the year before. It's the 2 tight ends that they drafted last year. It's bringing in A.J. Dillon when you already had Aaron Jones. It's now, every move, every step that they take along the way helps those players out. And you'll notice that it's not incompetent organizations that get really lucky at certain positions and have those runs. It's normally blue bloods that have established tradition, ownership, head coach, GM, all the way down, quarterback and on, that are hitting on these positions consistently.
100%. And Sarah, I do just want you to know that it took everything out of me not to, as the third thing in my list, name, how the Cowboys are so good at drafting white middle linebackers that are like played an all-star level for 6 quarters and then break their neck. But I want you to know I didn't do that.
I was hoping you were going to say you were going to throw us into the teams that are never bad, because we really are not ever bad. But you were not that kind, apparently.
Jerry Jones is all in on an MRI machine, and they're going to get that neck thing figured out before the next draft.
Good, so, good. Let's hope.
You're good. You're good.
Well, kind of sticking a little bit of draft salary cap or with the salary cap as well. What, in your opinion, what is the most bizarre trade scenario you've heard of in your years of analyzing salary cap, draft, either one? What kind of just sticks out in your mind?
It's the obvious one, and I know that this is so boring and you wanted something more exciting than this. It's Deshaun Watson.
Oh.
What the fuck was that?
Yeah. Fair.
You
Fair.
had because the thing is, like, even if you take the off the field side of this out of it, even if you sit there and you say, okay, like, we're going to throw all the allegations out, we're just purely football analyzing this. If you sat there as a general manager or as an ownership group and said, hey, we are willing to trade 3 first-round picks for the rights to acquire someone that hasn't played in 18 months, for the right to pay him $200+ million, every part of that is insane. All of it is crazy. And I understand you're trying to chase a top 5 quarterback. Cleveland's never had one. When you're talking about what it looks like, ask Mike what life without Josh Allen was like.
It was dark.
It's
there,
and that's what I'm saying. Would you now that I've said that, would you give up 3 first-round picks and guarantee $200 million to know that you have Josh Allen again?
I would take my son down to the bus stop and send him wherever he needed to go with those picks for Josh Allen.
How much for the boy?
And that's the thing, though, is the funniest part about this is you can be as in as you want on the Deshaun Watson situation, but you can't make it public. Atlanta made it public. Atlanta publicly said, yes, we are looking into Deshaun Watson, which is the dumbest thing that anybody could ever possibly do, because all the quarterbacks in your roster are sitting there saying, bro, you want to trade 3 first-round picks, you want to trade the team's immediate future plus $200 million for a guy that's never strapped on a Falcons helmet? Like, if you're Cleveland, that makes sense. You had Matt Ryan. That wasn't that long ago. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm pretty sure that was in the same offseason. And you're sitting there and you're watching these teams make these decisions, and you're just like, wow, this is one big PR nightmare. And Cleveland obviously still dealing with the fallout of having Watson. And the biggest problem is winning really does solve everything in this league. They don't care, man. Like, if you win, everything is forgiven. Nobody cares. Does anybody bring up Deflategate when we talk about Tom Brady? No. Why? Because he won again. Nobody cares.
We bring it up in this household.
If Russell Wilson goes to Pittsburgh and wins again, do you think we're going to talk about his terrible years in Denver? No. And that's the really strange part about how commoditized the NFL has become, is now it's just purely, hey, we're buying wins. This is what we're doing here. We do not care off the field, whatever, pillar of the community, not pillar of the community. We don't care. We want wins. Whatever puts butts in seats and whatever sells merchandise and gets us W's on Sundays, that's what we're paying for.
100%. And I mean, that's what everybody's battling for, is how do you get the wins? And I guess, I mean, obviously I feel like you are uniquely qualified to be able to answer this question, between being a kind of a draft expert, cap expert, all that above. If you were going to start a team and you had to try to get wins, I mean, obviously, people like Patrick Mahomes, I have to say Josh Allen for you, Mike. You one of those top tier quarterbacks, I feel like that's always the answer. But it obviously, as soon as you have to pay a guy like that, I mean, over the long-term deal, like you said, that money amortized over a long period of time with inflation, everything, it's the value is going to be much higher now, and over the end of those contracts is going to be less. But is it better to pay that quarterback a shitload of money and then, obviously not be able to have that embarrassment of riches that can go to your line, that can go to your position guys, that can go to your depth, that can go to your defense? Or is it better to build out that team and then draft a guy and hope Jordan Love can, get it together, hope a Brock Purdy can get it together and get you, where you need to go?
If you're starting from zero, if you have nothing, if you're 2023 Carolina is a great example. They're starting basically ground zero. Traded everybody that's valuable. Of course, they have guys that are still worth first-round picks on their roster, but they didn't totally gut the roster. They, Brian Burns, etc. If it's me and my personal team-building approach, I am not chasing the quarterback before I build the team. And the reason is because you get a guy like a Jared Goff is a great example. Jared Goff, when he has been protected, has been a very productive Super Bowl quarterback. That's not hyperbole. We've seen it happen.
Mm-hmm.
He was a play away. He was a Jahmyr Gibbs fumble away from getting back again this year. And we've seen him do that while he's making serious money. So when you look at kind of the profile of these guys that make Super Bowls, they fall into one of two buckets. It's either a rookie quarterback that gets hot at the right time and you've built a proper team around him, which has happened several times. You can go as far back as, Ben Roethlisberger making his runs. You can go to, early career Tom Brady, Manning, anybody that you want to name. That most Super Bowl champions involve a young quarterback on a rookie deal, the exception being Hall of Famers. And so if I'm looking at one of the two roadmaps that we have here, it's easier to hit on offensive tackle than it is quarterback. It's easier to hit on edge rusher than it is quarterback. It's easier to hit on wide receiver than it is quarterback. All of these pieces, as I'm stacking these premium draft capital chips that I have over to this 2, 3, 4, 5-year window, I'm just taking the highest percentage shot that this player will be elite. And then at some point, even if my quarterback is not elite, the roster around him will surround him to the point where, as long as I'm drafting well over time and replacing my players that are getting too expensive with guys that are no longer expensive, you kind of fall into these windows. You have your rookie quarterback window where everybody else can be expensive because your quarterback is cheap. Then you have a little bit of a transition window, which is kind of where Buffalo was last year, Kansas City was 2 years ago, Cincinnati's in it this year, where your quarterback is now starting to get expensive and some of these pieces become more expendable because you have to spend that money on your QB. And then you get into that real third window where it is our quarterback is expensive. We've got to draft well and support him with what we've got. And our GM and our front office need to do a lot more work in terms of keeping our roster together. As we, draft all of these guys to replace all of these really expensive free agents that we're going to lose because you can't pay everybody. And I wish you could, but in a capped league and, with the financial constraints that we have, I think it is probably easier to build a team around and then have a quarterback step in. And your case in point here is you have Mahomes, who's carried multiple different iterations of Chiefs teams. Great defense, not great receiving core last year. We also have, the Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce. We're going to score 35 a game and bomb the ball all over everybody. That version of that teamwork. But when you look at the other side of it, you look at a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo, who for the Niners was really, really good. And you look at what he looks like outside of that. And then you look at a guy like Purdy that they dropped in last pick in the draft. It's not like every team passed on him at least 6 times. So last guy in the draft obviously has talent. We're not trying to disparage what he is as a quarterback. It's one of the toughest jobs I think we have in the world in terms of what is actually coming at you in 2.5 seconds or less. But you look at what Brock Purdy does and you sit there and you're like, okay, I think that is more replicable than Patrick Mahomes being Patrick Mahomes.
100%.
Do you think Brock Purdy would stink on another team? Because I kind of do.
Stink is strong. I think he would look much more like a Baker Mayfield on another team, where based on what else is around him, he's very he's in that same mold. We've got a couple of those guys before he went completely off the rails and kind of had the seasons from hell, whatever the hell happened in New York. I thought Zach Wilson was kind of in that same cluster where where he goes is going to have such a big impact on what he turns out to be.
Yeah.
He's going to be going to the CFL is where he's going.
Sorry, buddy. New York Jets are not a recipe for success, man.
Better learn Canadian, buddy.
I thought you said the Broncos were doing great things. What do you mean? They're turning it around. Zach Wilson's the guy.
Yeah. Well, on a more personal level, I know you've had the opportunity to go to some drafts for work purposes, maybe for some fun as well, but I think mostly on the work trip. Do you have any favorite memories, draft day stories, anything that sticks out in your mind from your past few trips?
Yeah. So I've been to all of them since 2019. That was Nashville. Wow. And then 21 was Cleveland. 22 was Vegas, 23 was Kansas City, and then obviously 24 in Detroit. I think my favorite draft memory period was we're in Cleveland in 2021. It's pouring down rain. It's miserable outside. Nobody wants to be there. it's round one of the NFL draft, and everybody's getting poured on, and the quarterbacks are falling. We had, that was the year that it was Trevor Lawrence, and then it was Zach Wilson, and then it was Trey Lance, and people are waiting. Where is Mac Jones going to go? Where's Justin Fields going to go? And so I remember sitting there in the crowd with all of the Cleveland fans who were basically thanking God in the stands that they were not in that situation anymore, and that Baker was their guy, and that they weren't going to have to worry about that anymore. And looking back on that one's so much fun. The other one that sticks out to me, obviously Vegas was crazy. Detroit showed out, and they were incredible this year. Truly don't know how insane that got. But my favorite draft of all by far is 2019 in Nashville, and this one got really close. But 2019 in Nashville, where they roped off the streets on Broadway and they were announcing picks with Roger in the backdrop and Nissan Stadium right behind it. I don't think we're ever going to get a draft that's quite like that one. I like that they're moving it around city to city, but if they were ever going to go full combine with it, where it's just, this is our weekend, this is our event, I think Nashville's the place to do it.
That sounds like a good time.
That downtown Nashville is pretty sweet.
Yeah.
I've had a very fun weekend there.
Yeah. And I'm not wrapping up yet. We have a few more questions for you, but kind of getting a little more general, big picture for the 2024 season. Who are your sleeper teams for this year? I know we talked about who you thought did well in the draft. That might not translate over. So who are you getting behind for this year?
I feel like everybody's going to hate this, and I'm sorry to do this to you, Mike, but it's New England, because everybody has determined that they're dead and that, Belichick is gone, the evil empire is done. Drake May, to me, was the second best quarterback in this draft by a pretty wide margin. I thought he was closer to Caleb than he was to Jaden. And the league just decided, hey, we'll give New England this really special quarterback at third overall, where they never, ever pick. So we're going to have to deal with that for a while. I thought that the way that they approached the draft, the way that Elliot Wolf, their pseudo GM, director of player personnel, handled things opposite the way that Belichick would have in drafting a Jalen Polk and a Javon Baker, knowing that they needed wide receiver, but they didn't push the buttons too early. They waited for the guys that they wanted, and they got them, early in the second and early in the fourth rounds. I'm really interested to see, a team that has a 4.5, 5.5 win total, I think they're going to clear that pretty easily. People don't really pay attention to just how good that defense was last year before all the injuries tore them apart.
Yeah.
I really think that they're a team that I don't necessarily think they're going to get into the playoffs and make some noise the way that, like the Texans did last year. But I think that they're going to snake bite a couple of really good playoff teams, and people are going to take notice at some point this year.
Okay.
I like that a lot. And I also feel like that. I think that's very exciting. I feel like everybody is also
Drake May, though.
He does seem good. I think everybody is kind of anointing the Texans as the next big thing, and obviously, I think that they're going to be great. But I guess I just want to get your thoughts on this. With people are forgetting, I think that Anthony Richardson looked really good, and that Colts team was really, really good. Like, are they going to have as much of a cakewalk through that AFC South as everybody's saying?
No, we talked about this 2 weeks ago, I think, on our show, and the funniest part is, if you had going into 2022, if you had told somebody that 2 years from now, going into 23, if you told someone like a year and a half from now, the AFC South would be significantly better than the NFC South, team by team, someone would have laughed at you. They would have been like, look at all this talent across all these rosters. And then you look at the NFC South, you're sitting there saying, is Atlanta the favorite to win this division right now? Whereas you look at the AFC South, the Jags have suddenly gone from, we have our guy in perennial contention with Trevor Lawrence to, hey, Anthony Richardson is going to improve a team that almost made the playoffs last year. CJ Stroud just had the best rookie season we've ever seen. If Will Levis is anything, Tennessee is going to be improved from last year. And obviously he showed some flashes too. But the major concern that you've always got to have with any of these, guys coming back from injury like an Anthony Richardson is how much will that injury going forward prohibit him from being him? Because if you're an athlete, they're just wired differently from the rest of us. Everybody's had the day as you get older. You wake up one day and you can't quite do something that you used to be able to do 100%.
It's every day. It's every
when
day.
when you're an athlete and you've relied on this, this skill, your speed, your entire life, and suddenly they're asking you to just be this pure drop back passer. How does that change your game? Some people adapt and they'll be perfectly fine. Some people get their explosiveness back 100% and they're totally fine. But that's the biggest question mark to me, is coming off of an injury. It was a shame. Anthony Richardson's one of the most exciting players we have in the league at any position, and I would just love to see him. I mean, you're talking about a 99th percentile athlete across the board. I think if you've ever seen those RAS cards, I'm pretty sure he was almost like an 8 or a 9 as an RAS defensive end.
It's crazy. It's insane.
Just a freak athlete. And the guy that he reminds me most of, obviously, people have done the Josh Allen comps all day, but I mean, we've never seen a body type like that other than the guy that wore number 1 in Carolina for a decade. That's the only comp there is to me.
Yeah.
He's just got to stay on the field. He's got to learn. Figure it out. He was hurt like every other game.
Yeah, it's tough because you're taking body blows. I mean, Cam Newton and Anthony Richardson have linebacker bodies. That doesn't mean, playing the position you play, you can't expose yourself like that. I think Lamar Jackson's excellent at this. You never watch Lamar take huge hits. They'll take hits, but they're not the body crushers that Cam Newton used to take that you've seen Anthony Richardson run into. And I'm afraid we've got another one of those that's not 245 and Jaden Daniels coming in. Man, he's going to learn real quick that you cannot get away with trying to run into middle linebackers in the league, because this is not the SEC.
Mm-hmm.
Brian Burns is coming.
Oh yeah,
I'm scared for him because I've seen a lot of the highlights of the sacks he took in college, and I think he would be, he might be out of the league. He might be off this planet if he does that stuff in the NFL.
That's a tough prop, man.
I'm a little concerned with the Texans with how much they're spending money, and it feels like during free agency every other player signed with the Texans, and this is not Stephon Diggs related. It is what it is. Good luck. He already shot Tank Dell, so good luck over there, guys. Don't you think? I mean, like, where have we? And well, you're a Rams fan, right? You're a fan of the Rams. This might be the only example that I keep going, oh, this never works, but it kind of worked with the Rams when they were loading up on, kind of doing everything to get the Jalen Ramseys, to get Von Miller. Like, when this brings me back to like the Eagles with, I think it was Michael Vick and Vince Young was the backup, and they had signed like every free agent, and Vince Young called themselves like the dream team, and then like they didn't even make the playoffs. Doesn't this always kind of crash and burn when it's an entire team full of high-end free agents because the Texans have money to throw around like this?
See, the thing that they did that I thought was so brilliant was they invested in O-line and D-line before they had QB in CJ. And so all of these investments are now secondary. You look at the tackles that they've brought in. You look at their interior O-line. I wasn't the biggest fan of the Joe Mixon signing. He really doesn't move the needle for me at all. A running back is a running back. I would much rather have someone cheaper with upside that isn't, already 1,500 plus carries in the last few years. I think for me, the toughest part about saying anything negative about Houston is if CJ is the guy that we saw last year, he's just going to elevate people over and over again. That's anytime you draft a QB, that's what you're hoping for. You're hoping for that kind of immediate impact. And it took Josh 2 years, as you well know, and they had a plan for him. And then year 3, you saw the supernova. He's awesome. Mm-hmm. Pat sat on the bench for a year. Is he the same player if he starts week 1? I don't know. I think he figures it out, but is he the same player immediately? Does that trajectory look the same? It's very rare to see a guy that has a week 1 start and hits the ground running the way that CJ did. The guy that he reminded me most of in the process was kind of a souped up Joe Burrow. And I hesitated to, I obviously a Buckeye. I watched a lot of them, both of them. But I hesitated to throw that out there just because what Burrow did in year 2 is so ridiculous with the O-line that they had and the players that they had there. Not that Jamar and T weren't awesome. They are. But what he did with the O-line that they had there is just crazy. We're never going to see anything like that again. And so I hesitated to make that comp because it's asking someone to live up to these such lofty expectations. And I think people are just saying, hey, well, last year they did this. They're going to start this year at 10-7, 11-6, and we'll see how high they go. No. It doesn't work that way. You've still got to stack those wins until you get to 11 or 12 to get into the postseason to have the opportunity to do that again. I'm very high on Houston, but I don't know if I'm as high on Houston as the people that are ready to declare them dethroners of Kansas City. I think that's crazy. The guy that wears 15 in Kansas City is a magician, and there is really serious dark voodoo magic there. He's the best I've ever seen. And I say that fully having watched Tom Brady and knowing exactly what he's capable of. I watched Rodgers, but I mean, that guy is just different.
Mm-hmm. Agree, 100%.
And I want to give you some time to maybe think about this, but we do want to get your Super Bowl predictions in just a second. But I know that Mike has just been chomping at the bit, and there's a question that he's been asking me, and I don't have an answer for him. So I'm really hoping that you might be able to help him out.
Yeah, actually, I want to break this down into two parts. Can you, because I think all of our listeners are very concerned with exactly what is the point of the post-June 1st release structure with how salary cap, how releases work. And second, the Bills, obviously, as everybody knows, we cut Trey White, and he's on your Rams now. Congratulations, you got a good one. We designated him a post-June 1st release, meaning in a couple of weeks, the Bills are about to get a fat check for $10 million or however, a fat opening in our salary cap. How do we specifically, and I'll email this over to Brandon Bean, how do we turn that into like Justin Jefferson or DK Metcalf? Go.
So Brandon, first of all, is one of the smartest people in our industry. He's a brilliant football mind, has been long before he got to Buffalo, but great dude. Love the work that he's done there. As you well know, the roster that he inherited versus what he's looking at now is a very different proposition. That being said, the post-June 1st designation is really a designation to spread salary cap hits across a couple of years. What you'll hear something referred to as a dead cap hit. And people ask all the time, well, what is a dead cap hit? Dead cap is money that you've already paid to a player that you haven't accounted for in your salary cap. That's really what it is. So if you've paid your player $50 million, but to the cap, you've only accounted on your books $30 million, that $20 million will be considered dead cap money. It's money that you eventually have to pay to the salary cap, but using the same parameters that we discussed before, $1 today is worth more than $1 tomorrow. So if you designate them as a post-June 1st release or post-June 1st trade, whatever it is, retirement across the board, it splits the cap hit across the current year and the following year. Okay. So their goal there was to create some space, some breathing space in 2024. And as for how do you turn that into Justin Jefferson, man,
or DK.
DK Metcalf might be more doable, just because they have Lockett and they have Jackson Smith and Jigba, but
that's right. It's only one football.
Would be very surprised. I'd be very surprised to see him go. The other one that I get tossed a lot is T. Higgins. Cincinnati has been very stubborn historically in terms of moving people when they ask to be moved. So I wouldn't see that one either. But basically the question is how could they do that? They would make Justin Jefferson's cap hit this year, and it would be a sign and trade. They would make Jefferson's cap hit this year as minimal as possible to basically absorb the contract on their side. And then whatever contract is agreed to, they would kind of blow it out in future years, just so that they would be able to take on the contract in year one.
That sounds great. I'll do it.
Yeah, but again, is that
No. Sure. We'll do it.
If you have 3 first-round picks sitting around somewhere, let me know.
I'm sure I could find them.
Amazing.
What do you think he would get? Sorry, last
on the open market.
Like seriously though, because like Christian McCaffrey, what did he go for? Was it even a first?
It was a second and a third, if I remember right.
And I understand he's a running back in it, but who was the other receiver that just got Well, like they're valuing, for instance, Cortland Sutton, because that's another guy we've been rumored at. They're valuing him at a 4th or a 5th rounder.
Well,
is it 3 first rounds? I mean,
if I'm Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, if I'm in Minnesota, yeah, you need to give me 3 1s. 2 1s would probably move the needle. It just kind of depends on what else is there. But yeah, I mean, you're talking really, really serious capital. And the thing is, Justin Jefferson is an awesome player. What nobody talks about is what Minnesota did when they traded Stephon Diggs to Buffalo and then drafted Justin Jefferson was they got a 5-year plus cost control on a wide receiver that was every bit as good or better. And even if they had to throw 2 darts at it, right? Let's say it takes 2 first-round picks to get that player. Still worth it. The thing that's never discussed is what if you're the Lions and it takes 4?
Right.
And then you finally end up with Calvin Johnson, who's awesome, but now you have 3 totally wasted first-round picks, sitting in the graveyard over there. So it's an interesting roster construction thing. I really don't think it's feasible, that it's doable. But I mean, in terms of mechanics, it can absolutely be done. Do I think that there's a path for that to happen? Probably not.
I think Mike just hung up.
I did tell everybody, and they told me they didn't want to go ahead with it. I was going to do like 20 minutes on Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who we signed, and that was going to be like, maybe that's the answer. But
Dude, Mike,
maybe
Mike, there's an argument to be made that this is the worst quarterback he's ever played with.
Wait a minute.
He went from Rodgers to Mahomes to Josh Allen.
Oh boy.
Did you want to bring that up? Actually, I'm more interested in doing 20 minutes on it again. Can we talk?
Biggest arm.
Can we talk about this? Actually, that was the.
I think that's our time. I gotta.
How crazy is that?
Let's make that 30 minutes.
You play with a top 3 quarterback your entire career. That's just nuts.
Yeah,
that is wild.
Josh Allen's strongest arm, Marcus Valdez-Scantling, likes to run fast, far.
You put Marquez Valdez-Scantling on the Panthers, he'll be panhandling in 3 weeks. He'll be out on the streets asking for money.
Look, man, you're replacing Gabe Davis. Just give us more than Gabe Davis.
It's true, and I love Gabe, but it's true. When you look at the numbers, it's not that bad. We'll be okay.
No,
it's all Keon Coleman.
The other part of this. The personality man of the league now. But when you get to this stage of where Buffalo is, that's kind of what you're relying on. Is at this point, you build out the defense, you build out the O-line, you hope that Josh can elevate some of these pass-catching weapons. And Dalton Kincaid, for anybody that plays fantasy, Dalton Kincaid, big buy. Love my guy.
Yeah, very good. He's going to be the next. Yeah, I'm back. It doesn't take much all season. I'm eternally optimistic right now.
So now, before we let you go, we got to do the classic trope. We need your Super Bowl prediction, and I know you've gotten dabbled in gambling a little bit. If you got any other, maybe fun bets, winning divisions, winning things, little early season futures, we'd be happy to have those as well.
Yeah. So something that I think doesn't get talked about a lot is it doesn't happen very often that the team that wins the Super Bowl has the quarterback that won MVP, and I say quarterback because I think the last one to not be a quarterback was Adrian Peterson, if I remember right. Mm-hmm. It's been a long time. So when you look at gambling odds, historically, the top teams in the league are the top quarterbacks in the league. So you can kind of look at those markets as almost symmetrical, where you're betting CJ Stroud to win MVP at 10-1, whereas you can get the Texans to win the Super Bowl at 18-1. I don't think that those odds are entirely as dissimilar as they suggest. I think the true line for both is probably somewhere in the middle. So that's a fun way to kind of take one side or the other. For Super Bowl champions, I'm going to be boring as shit, man. Give me Kansas City until it's not Kansas City.
Yeah.
I think that it's going to be – I think they host the Ravens this year, and I think it's going to be another one of those right back to the nail-biters. I do think it's the Lions out of the NFC
Love
this year.
That.
And kind of a rematch of Game 1 last year, come make it, 20 months later, full circle, and they're in the Super Bowl down there in New Orleans. But two really great franchises that I think have built their teams so different. And I think that's another case study and why we love this sport so much is there are so many ways you can build out a roster. You can take the Cleveland approach of let's buy our quarterback and we'll fill in everything else. You can take the Lions approach of they value our quarterback more than we do at this point. We're going to do right by him and we're going to build a super team around him and hope that he carries us. I think San Fran will have something to say about that. I think the Eagles will be back for sure. I really do think the Packers are terrifying, man. Like if Jordan Love even gets a little bit better than he was at the end of last year, I mean, he was doing some crazy back foot stuff that I've never seen. The AFC is just a bloodbath. And so to pick a team other than KC seems like a waste of everyone's time.
Couldn't agree more.
More of attrition in terms of, who's going to be the most healthy in January. Give me the guy that wears 15 in Kansas City. I got this.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed you didn't.
Indoors or outdoors? No, seriously.
It is indoors.
For the Lions.
It's New Orleans. It's New Orleans.
Indoors.
So Goff can win it.
Yeah.
Indoor Cats.
Yeah. There's a very famous, it's my favorite regular season game of all time, and not just because the Rams won that game, but there is a 54-51 2018 regular season game between Goff and Mahomes. It's 18 or 19, I can't remember what year, but it's, I think, the best regular season game ever played. So, I mean, he beat him in that one. Yeah.
Take a repeat of that. That'll be fun. Well, listen, Anna, we very, very much have loved having you on. This was a tremendous amount of fun, and I personally feel a lot smarter having talked to you.
That's the goal, man.
Yeah.
It was great chopping it up with you guys, and clearly you guys are all really passionate about what you do. You care about the product that you put out there, and you spent the time and created a really special show sheet. I enjoyed a lot of the questions that I just don't get asked all that often, and I had a great time. We'll do it again sometime soon.
Absolutely, we love you. We'll have you back on when the season gets a little bit closer, and we'll be able to chop it up mid-season and figure it all out. But listen, as we mentioned before, is a co-host of the Decision Point podcast, so go give that a follow, give that a listen. It's a really wonderful piece of media. So we appreciate having you on, and we'll talk to you soon, Anand.
Take care, guys.
Well, that was a fucking outstanding interview. I feel a lot smarter. I know I mentioned that, but I realized I said I sound a lot smart. I feel a lot smarter after that, and he did not return the favor. So I feel like I think that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah. I think this was a different one for our listeners. We don't really bring the intellectual content to this website. That's not our area of expertise here. So I feel like this was a good one for the people to get their mind going. I learned a lot. I mean, I think we've talked about it on here. Like we have even literally said before, is the salary cap even real? We unsure, but now we know. And I feel like it was great. Definitely excited to have him come back on either right before the preseason, early season. And I mean, his betting history, Mike, I'm sure you're all over that. I feel like we could do a whole other episode with that.
Him and me are going to be talking late into the night tonight. Whether I might just be talking to no one, but maybe will respond.
Well, listen, we got him on, and he doesn't know how much he's going to regret it yet. So we appreciate him very, very much. We hope to have him on again when we get a little closer to football season. And it'll be very, very exciting. So we appreciate you guys listening as always. We love you, and we will talk to you next week.